Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 197. This week has been very exciting with more beta progresses. We had a stress test last night, which we will go into during the show, and there's also been some minor or medium updates in the PTR that we will also mention and show you guys. Before we go on, I'd like to introduce my lovely co-host, Perculia.
Hey everyone, I'm Perk. I run Wowhead, and it's been a really fun week because we've had a ton of classic updates and some interesting 8.2 things as well. But yeah, mainly a big week because of classic. We don't have SAS with us this week, so no giveaway, but I just wanted to thank everyone for watching all of Wowhead's beta and data mining streams this week. We've had really awesome support on that. So, yeah.
Apparently, whoops. That played again. Apparently, I forgot to introduce myself. So, I am Annie.
Yes.
Annie Fuchsia. I stream on Twitch full time and also do this show for you weekly. There we go. That's my introduction.
Yay.
I always forget when there's like something else to be excited about. Also, I'm a streamer and not a YouTuber. So, introducing myself is something that I never really do. I think Wowhead Weekly is the only place where I do introduce myself, actually.
Oh, we feel special.
Introduce Cat. Yeah, we have some cats in the show. Usually, I think Brightpaw is more likely to make an appearance, but we also have another cat called Luna. She is currently sleeping on my table, you know, just getting her rest after a very tough week.
Yeah, Luna always has her beauty rest, and Brightpaw is usually destroying something in the background or trying to jump onto my head.
Mm-hmm. I think that pretty much summarizes it. Perfect summary. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's get started with today's stuff. We have the PTR news, maybe, to start off with. Got some new updates.
We still don't know when the PTR is coming out, but we continue to have weekly builds and a lot of kind of medium level hype announcements, especially as they keep testing more of the Eternal Palace raid. So for the first topic, we learned a little bit more about Tauren and Gnome heritage armor in a Blizzard post made a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
These sets we data mined a while back, and we learned that the Gnome set is really easy to get next to the Tauren set, which I found interesting. For the Gnome set, you must be level 120 and exalted with the Gnomergan faction to unlock the questline. But for the Tauren, you also need to do up through the 8.2 war campaign, which the post made it seem would not be available day one of patch 8.2. And it's also not clear if you can just do the 8.2 step of the war campaign if you have to do all the stuff leading up to it. If so, that would be a lot of extra questing.
Yeah, that's really
heritage
interesting.
armor.
I wonder why the Tauren required more. Because I think with the other ones too, like Blood Elf and which other one was also out?
The dwarf.
Yeah, the dwarf one. They didn't really require that much.
Yeah, so that was sort of weird. I mean, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense narratively because the war campaign is about Bane, but that does seem to be a lot of time, and we also don't know when everything is available in 8.2, so a lot of people are like, well, when will this be available? Is it available day one? Does it come a week later? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Brightpaw making an appearance.
Yeah, he wants the water. He's not going to get the water.
Aww. Maybe there'll be a similar requirement for the Alliance in the future. Yeah, you never know. You never know. It's very possible.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to guess, I would think that they want to experiment with different sorts of
ways of obtaining
requirements. And I could see that maybe if they ever get around to like Night Elf heritage armor or a race that had a lot of buildup in BFA, they would want you to do a lot to unlock that as well. Like, you know, you can easily see the Night Elf thing being like, oh, make sure that you do the Night Warrior quest line first to understand what's going on and all that.
Yeah, I think that would make sense.
Yep.
So this comes with the 8.2 PTR, and just like Perk said, we don't know exactly when it's going to be, but we are estimating it to be around mid-July, correct?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I used to think it was going to be end of June, but as we keep going on and on with no clear information, I keep thinking it's going to be, July at this point.
I guess we'll see.
Yep.
Probably gonna get a date very soon. I mean, I think most people have been pretty busy playing classic beta and
Yeah.
having exciting things like stress tests, so they probably don't want to announce those things just yet. Maybe in a week or two we'll get a date for that.
Yeah. Probably. I wonder if they want to let people play through Memorial Day in the US and just sort of go crazy with Classic, and then in June, like, pivot to 8.2 promotion. Well, we'll see. It's been interesting how they're, first time they have to manage two versions of the game at the same time as far as, hype and
like
release
PR
cycles.
and like the marketing.
Yeah,
like how
they dropped a PTR build like 3 hours before the stress test, so that was really weird trying to cover. It's like, oh, let's remind people about the stress test as we data mine essences on the front page.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it must be difficult having multiple. I mean, it's sort of like two different games, right? And how do you keep the hype without overshadowing the other one, and keep both games up to date and properly marketed? And yeah, I can see how that must be difficult sometimes.
Yeah. But speaking of new PTR things opening, we just mentioned in the intro that they keep testing the Eternal Palace, and last week we had, I think, the juicy tidbit about when it opened. We saw the prison of Nazoth and what that could mean, and we actually got to see, all the rooms being different colors. And with the raid testing this past week, we saw even more cool stuff. So the first thing we learned is that if you rudely emote Queen Ashara during the Queen's Court encounter, she will instantly kill you.
It's so funny. Like, I don't know, I still find it so funny. Slash emote actually has an effect in the game. That's insane.
Yeah. And if you do a nice emote, if you do a bunch of them, you earn an achievement. So she's rewarding you.
Yes. So she can be both nice and cruel.
I can just imagine, like, the LFR memes, how in Molten Core it's like, oh, you need to pull rag by jumping through the window and then you would die. I can just picture that, like, oh, start the encounter, rude Ashara.
Yeah.
And you die.
Slash rude for Ashara buff, guys.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's gonna be so funny. I wonder if in LFR it would be a little bit more forgiving, like half HP or something.
Yeah. It's really funny too. It's like, oh, you have ignored court etiquette, so we have, she's
etiquette
expresses, she is displeased and kills you instantly, and you're like,
That's
oh,
funny. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, but I'm also looking forward because on Friday they're going to be testing the early part of her encounter for the first time, which is really cool because she's like at the very end of the palace, and we actually get to face off against her, and the raid fight's kind of weird. Like, the end of it sounds very, Circle of Stars and Old Gods, but the first part, she's putting on a play of doomed lovers, and I'm like, I don't see how this fits into the boss encounter, but I guess I don't know. I look forward to seeing how it fits in and why she's putting on a play for us during the
how
fight.
It all connects.
Yeah, like, she doesn't really seem to be someone that cares about emotions, so I'm like, oh, why does she care about doomed lovers? But we'll see. That should be fun. It seems like every week when they open the Eternal Palace, there's like a really cool detail that we can, write or hype up or do something with.
So when did you say that was? On Friday?
Yep, that is Friday at...
So Friday is in tomorrow?
Yep. Okay. And I covered it. I didn't put it in the notes, but I'm like, where's the news? And I'm like, I can't find the news because there's so much classic stuff.
Yeah, classics taking over everything.
Oh, here we go. Queen Ashara, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay. So evening time
Yay.
For us Europeans.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So I think that should be exciting.
And
another? Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to introduce it for you, actually.
Okay.
So
okay.
you might as well go.
Introduce me.
Right.
Okay.
So apparently there were a few more interesting things in the raids, which led to some speculation and possibly spoilers. Is that necessary or just speculation?
I mean, why don't we just put it up to be safe for like a few minutes?
Okay.
I don't want to narrate the post on Fully Tell, but yeah, why don't we just put it up? But
All right.
basically, the article, the thing that triggered this article was that there's the penultimate boss, and he used to be called Zakul, Herald of Nazoth. And then when they opened him for raid testing last week, he became Zakul, Harbinger of Nyarlathotep.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, oh, that's we've always sort of heard the city in whispers, starting from the puzzle box of Yogg, and it kept being mentioned, like in the Il'gynoth encounter, in the Mist of Pandaria Garrosh weapon, and a lot of people assumed that it was tied to N'Zoth. In some way, tied because N'Zoth would be tied to dreams, and the city was tied to sleep. But now this is pretty explicit proof linking those two things together, because the exact phrase is Zakul, Harbinger of Nyarlathotep, the Harbinger for the end of days. Zakul shreds the last vestiges of sanity from a world in chaos, laying the foundation for Azeroth's new master. And the new master is obviously N'Zoth, because
Mm-hmm.
he's by the prison. So that was just exciting. So we wrote this article that was examining all the times the city and N'Zoth were mentioned together in whispers. And then we looked at the actual encounter, which was kind of fascinating too, because the boss phases parallel the phases in Unat. So, like, the first phase is madness with similar abilities, the second phase is fear and hysteria, and then the third phase is
Mm.
about delirium and lunacy. And then the final phase is called All Pathways Open. And, at the end of Unat, N'Zoth is like, oh, you've succeeded. Your truths are open. All eyes are open. So to me, it feels like Zakul is the, like, continuation or like hard mode of Unat as far as like passing
Mm-hmm.
N'Zoth's tests. So
Mm-hmm.
we had a lot of fun with that. And we're trying to speculate what happens if we go there in a future patch. And especially if we think that sleeping is tied with death, then that could mean that Sylvanas is really interested in mastering death from one angle, and then maybe N'Zoth and his other city of Sleeping Death is also interested in taking over with the Black Empire. So they could have a interesting clash if that
Mm-hmm.
lines up.
So,
Um,
Zakul, what boss is he in the raid itself? Like, what number?
he is the seventh out of eighth boss, and
Oh, okay.
he's in. You go outside, you exit the palace, and he's in this air bubble, and the seas are being held back, and the waves are all crashing,
Mm-hmm.
and the white peaks, it looks like the circle of stars, looks like little constellations,
Mm-hmm.
so it's very
Sounds
symbolic.
amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the encounter was really fun to watch too, because you're in the ocean, but the floor is lighting up with all this red goo on the floor, and there's black tentacles coming from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, the whole part of the raid's very like sea like, and then all of a sudden it's like red, old gods, corruption.
Yeah.
So that look, it was very visually striking. So I look forward to the visuals that are going to be present in the Ashara encounter as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, could we be going there in 8.3? Could N'Zoth want to be, bringing back this city? And then Sylvanas is like, no, I want to master death from a different angle. So, they're down different paths of destruction. But yeah, we did a really long article on this with lots of links to past things we've written, and, just sort of compiling all these quotes across the database into one place.
Ooh,
So,
yeah.
definitely check it out. It's a
That's
fun
something
read.
that Wowhead is always good at, Putting all the things together, finding a red thread in the big jungle, making it easier for the rest of us to, make sense of things. So that's great.
Aw, thank you. I think we can take the spoiler tag off though
Let's
now.
do
And if you're
that.
like, well,
Mm-hmm.
where's this article? We have Wowhead Weekly embedded on the front page with our articles and from the notes underneath, so you can find that easily.
Mm-hmm. I can link the specific one in the Twitch chat,
Yeah, why not?
the latest one. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you check out wowhead.com, you'll see the show on the front page, and all the links will be there. All the links of the things we're talking about.
Yep. So, oh, we've got
yeah,
some
there is
subs.
yeah, there is a
Okay.
few more PTR things to cover. Yeah. But before we do that, we would like to thank Rada Kurth for the resub, streaking at 11 months in a row, almost a whole year. Thank you so much, Rada. Really appreciate it. We, going on to some more PTR discoveries. There was a new discussion on an essence that gives a PvP talent to you in PvE environments. So, Perk, what does that mean?
Okay, so there is an essence called Conflict and Strife, and the description is teaches you the following PvP talent and allows use against all enemies of Azeroth. So that means that you can have a total of 4 PvP talents, up from 3. 3 spec-specific ones in PvP combat. And when you're out killing a boss in a raid or dungeon, this essence will grant you a specific PvP talent to use in PvE, and the implications of this are pretty huge. Mm-hmm. You don't just get to pick any; it gives you one, and right now they're all over the place. So I want to say that Blizzard has clarified that this is preliminary; it's not set in stone, but people are getting pretty up in arms because some PvP talents are really overpowered. For example, if you have this essence, balanced druids get to use in PvE Moonkin Aura, where you get 4% spell critical strike chance to 8 allies, stacking up to 3 times. So that's 12 spell critical strike chance for your party.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like, okay, well, we need 3 boomkins at least to cover our raid for tonight. So I'm sorry, Mage. Last spot, we need a boomkin. No, but that's really cool because, I mean, I don't know if cool is the word, but so in this case, boomkins get something that benefits everybody. And then we have some PvP talents that are given to other specs or classes that are not as great or as useful for the raid.
Yeah. So just to highlight one more that seems really OP, all rogues get Smoke Bomb. And that seems like it could really mess up some boss encounters because you can't target people inside a smoke bomb. Oh. So that could possibly disrupt, boss scripting, or it just flat out break the encounter if you can't, die from something.
Yeah. There's this really fatal ability that this specific ad in a boss fight casts. Oh, no problem. Yeah. We have smoke bomb now.
Yeah. But for example, let's see. Havoc, for example, it just affects the cooldown of Metamorphosis is reduced by 2 minutes, but now lasts for 15 seconds. Restoration is just you become immune to silence and interrupt effects after using Spirit Walker's Grace. Let's see. Destruction. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, and it is. I just saw a comment in the chat. It is good to note that this is preliminary, and they have said it as well. But we're just discussing it because it's quite interesting. But yeah, go ahead, Perk.
Yeah. So for example, Death Knights get Necrotic Strike, so it deals damage, and then it absorbs 7% of your health and healing received. But then Hunters get Feign Death, which removes all harmful magic effects and reduces damage taken by 99%. So that seems really overpowered and situational, maybe a hunter would tank in a pinch or absorb some very difficult part of the encounter. So some of these seem very overpowered, either as far as the utility or a party bus provided, while others are just oh, that's cool, it's an ability tweak. So if you're wow, some of these really don't make sense, the BFA Blizzard forums are the place to go, not the Wowhead forums, because we don't develop the game.
Yeah, that's I can imagine people complaining to you guys. Is that true? Yeah. What the hell, Wowhead?
Yeah.
Why
I should have mentioned this at the start of the 8.2 thing, but in addition to all of our beta streams, we're trying out streaming our voice comms when we have a new PTR build to cover. As one person is pulling up the models and everything to show on the stream. It was pretty fun. But when we saw the essence, we were then streaming our discoveries of them. So we're like, oh, who's the warrior? Oh, link this, like read me the abilities out loud. So we had all these people being like, the Wowhead stream says that everyone gets Moon Kenora. Like the Wowhead stream says that this is the ability,
No.
and it's
Yeah.
generating a lot of hype and confusion in the stream chat, and then people begging us to go faster to make the post. So it was sort of fun how
Oh.
that occurred.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
um,
it's always gonna be hard with more eyes on you.
Yeah, and then everyone was like, "Oh my god, like do this class next, do that class next."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
You get to see how
I
it
mean,
feels to be a streamer, you know?
I
All the
know it was,
impossible things at the same time.
yeah. But I mean, I'm happy we did it, and I think that it's cool they're trying to experiment with essences. Maybe it's good we don't have a release date yet because if they can maybe do more tuning to make sure that this isn't totally out of whack
Mm-hmm.
and crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like because this is so wild, I feel like they should have discussed this in the April summit because they talked all about essences, and I feel like this is like a really big game changer if it goes live in its current state. So I feel like the discussion on this should have started a little bit earlier. But
That reminds
it
me
is
of
what it is.
Azerite. How that should have been
Yep.
discussed earlier too in the PTR or in the beta even. But yeah,
Yeah.
Luna was here for a second. If you're wondering what is that
Aw.
cone around her neck, she recently got spayed. Recently, as in yesterday, actually. So she's using, or she's supposed to use that as protection so that she doesn't touch her wound with her tongue. So that's what's going on.
When
That's what's going on.
Brightpaw wore a cone, he got so angry he couldn't take it off. He started vomiting nonstop until they took him to the vet, and the
Yeah,
vet took it off, and then he stopped.
I couldn't believe that. So when they took off the cone, did he need some other kind of protection to not touch the wound?
Well, they just decided that like he would just, even if he didn't heal perfectly or if it took longer, it was better than him like
Yeah.
making himself
Yeah,
sick.
no, of course, of course. I've heard of some people having the solution of cutting the end of a sock and then making the cat wear the sock so that it covers the wound area so that they simply can't reach it. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I found it hard to do it on her because I was considering that to take off the cone because she managed to take it off twice herself. But I tightened it and now it seems like it's okay. And I think she's kind of also accepted it today. She's not as
Yeah.
annoyed as she was yesterday. So that's good.
Aw.
But yeah, just a random cat topic. It happens. We both have cats. For those of you who don't want to hear about cats, sorry.
We'll talk about other animals like crabs.
Yes, yes. That transition perk, that's amazing. So we have some more information on the crab mount.
Yep.
Where's my mouse? Here it is. Speaking of another animal, my mouse. Yeah, so we have some more info on the crab mount, which we have showed you guys in the past. It's that really cool looking one that moves with you on its side, or it moves sideways rather. There is a meta achievement in Nazjatar, and receiving all those achievements gives you or rewards you with the crab mount.
Yep, and as well as the title reward of the deeps. So
Of the
and the
deeps. Ooh.
achievement is Undersea Usurper. And there's some really funny achievements, including one that rewards cats. So I thought that we could highlight
Oh, so we're going back to cats
some
now.
of this. Yeah, we're going back to cats.
Sorry, guys, cats again. But yeah, so there's these cat statues in. Wait, let's see if I can get the text up.
It's the last one. Yeah.
There we go. Find all 10 crystalline cat figurines that were gifted to Ashara.
Because someone gave her a cat figurine one time, even though she never really liked cats. I think she likes cats because why would she keep putting up with getting cat figurines? Like, she's so powerful, and if she didn't like a gift, I'm sure they would stop giving it to her. So yeah, there are 10 cat figurines around. Then there are a few achievements related to the bodyguards related to your faction. So subaquatic support, complete 30 requisition bounties, reach exalted with your faction, and tour of the depths, which is like complete an emissary for your ally, assist so and so, defeat this with one of your allies. So stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. What about
Let's
this
see.
puzzle performer? Find and complete all of Mardiva's secret puzzles. Do we know
Well,
anything
that
about these puzzles?
so that's interesting because with some of the ketchup gear in Rise of Ashara, the benthic items, some of the equips are related to accessing Mardivas. So my guess is that you need to have the
Oh.
items equipped to make the puzzle easier. So that's pretty cool.
Oh. That's cool.
I really like Merle's secret stash. Um, the it's obtain one of his more elusive wares, and he's a trader that plays a trading game. And if you equip another benthic item, you can see more wares, and you play the trading game to get the Crimson Tide Stallion seahorse mount.
Wait, so you need to wear certain gear to see certain things
Yeah.
that he sells?
Yep.
Okay.
And then you buy a
Interesting.
mount.
And is it expensive,
So
the mount itself?
no, you get just keep like trading things back and forth.
Oh. That's cool.
Yeah. And then you have to kill a lot of rare spawns. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing you don't have to do, which we learned, is the achievement in this version of the PTR says that you need to complete the bigger bag achievement. But Muffinist tweeted out that they have decided to remove that from the
Really?
achievement. Yep.
Why is
So that's
that?
cool.
Is that because of the old one?
Well, yeah, because everyone was like, "Oh my god, like this will take forever," and with the way phasing is, and how if you go back and farm it expansions later,
Mm,
things die in one shot, and you can't. It's very hard to get things done. So they removed it, I guess, so people would actually complete the meta during the expansion.
yeah.
Uh,
I do agree with the
so
phasing. The phasing does make it not feel so what's the word? Not rewarding, I guess.
right.
Um because you don't know in which shard you're going to be, and some people might be lucky and keep switching shards, or lucky or intentional switching shards feels a little bit unfair. Yeah, no, I can understand that.
Yep.
I don't like
And
phasing. I'm hoping that they'll bring layering to live, like retail, and if possible. I mean, if they bring layering, that automatically means if there's not too many people, you would always be on the same phase, right? So I feel like
yeah.
layering should be used for retail.
Maybe with all the classic stress tests, which we'll get to,
Mm-hmm.
they'll think that if layering tech is good, they
Mm-hmm.
could expand it and use it further.
Yeah, that
Because
would
we
be
also
great.
learned that in the process of fixing things for classic,
I was
to
actually just
have
thinking
Eyes
about
of the
that.
Beast
Mm-hmm.
work, they're like, oh, we can now bring back Eyes of the Beast in
Yes.
DFA.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm gonna mention that a little bit later. We
Uh,
have one last thing to
yep.
mention in the among the PTR updates,
Mhm.
and that is that we have some more information on the punch cards that you use for the trinket. If you guys remember, there was a trinket where you put in the stats or effects yourself to kind of customize your own trinket,
Mhm.
and we found some more effects from those. Let me show them on the screen as well.
Yeah, I think previously we had 12 in the database, and now we've got 32.
Mm-hmm.
The yellow ones are pretty straightforward. It's just, combinations of secondary stats. The red ones have interesting, like, bursty effects, and the blue ones do weird situational effects. So, for example, you can find spare parts in Mechagon, you get swim speed, um, you can track mechanical creatures, you can gain access to special hacking constructs, you can breathe underwater. So, like a variety of silly things. And the red punch cards are things like, oh, you can get a combat ally for 3 minutes, or you can, increase your heal on an injured target, or when you heal someone at low health, your spells refund mana, or you deal damage every 0.5 seconds for 3 seconds. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of interesting procs like that. When I interviewed Muffinus at the press event last week, he was talking about how they tried to make a bunch of different systems with cool items. So it's not just like, oh, what's my Azurite, but it's like, what's my Azurite and how does it interact with the punch cards? And then do I pick any rings that have interesting procs, and then do I pick any benthic gear with certain equips? So like lots of different systems working together instead of just, oh, look at all these items and they're boring except for Azurite. So I think it could work out. Of course, there's always questions like what happens if you want to swap these out frequently? And is the trinket like, useless until you get multiple sockets filled in? Because it doesn't have any stats at the start.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, so,
It's empty.
it's like, oh, you have to like go in and, get that yellow punch card, to get some stats in, and then you can get your utility proc and your DPS proc. But I think now that we actually know there are, 32 punch cards and not, like 10,
Yeah.
I think that the system does seem a lot more interesting and varied.
More promising.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
and that's it for the PTR part.
Yep.
Now
Of
we
course,
can
lots
jump
of
into
little things. Yeah. I said there's always like lots of little things that don't really fit with the hype of a show, like, oh, we found this item, but the PTR did happen yesterday, so some of the stuff's still on the front page if you want to see it. But the thing that most people have been watching and playing and excited about is WoW Classic, so we've got a lot of stuff on the show about Classic. Yeah.
Let's start off with the list of features that are not bugs, which had been reported to possibly be bugs. Let's get the list up on the screen. Perk, which one was your favorite?
I liked creature respawn rates are much slower than in Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah, a lot of these I start wondering, like, did some of these people know anything about the game being different?
I also liked NPCs, which offer multiple quests, may inconsistently display them as a dot. They were inconsistent in 1.12, and we've reproduced the exact inconsistency they had back then. So it's like,
that was interesting.
Yeah. It's like they're preserving the bugs.
Yes, exactly.
So, yeah, I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah, no, I really like that one as well, because that was something that was not expected, like from my point of view either. Because I feel like the one that you mentioned before with spawn rates being different, I feel like that kind of goes similarly with the one where people were saying, or the bug on the list that says quests, objectives, and points of interests are not tracked on the map or mini map. And I found it funny that there's people who actually don't know that. And like, we have so much interest around Classic and Classic becoming a thing, and meanwhile there's so many people who have no idea how Classic was. I mean, I didn't play Classic myself, but I still know a lot of these things because, well, when I played in Wrath, for example, I remember needing to download an add-on called Quest Helper. So yeah, I know that those things weren't there, and it's funny to kind of like realize again that Classic is still a big question mark for a lot of people.
Yeah, the quest objectives is interesting because with the API available, you can make and use add-ons that do add quest tracking. So it's just funny because maybe people just remember using the add-on.
Yeah,
just
so they don't
remember
part
of the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's what it is as well. That's a
I also thought that the being critically struck while using sit does not cause abilities to activate was funny, because I think that was like a big thing spread on various servers, like, oh, do it this way, it's a cool trick, and it's like, oh no, that wasn't how it was in Classic. I also liked how feared players run really fast.
Yeah, I was just gonna read that one as well, because I found that really strange, because
oh yeah, because you play a warlock and you were fierce. You're like, whoa, like
I fear something. I start casting Shadow Bolt and suddenly out of range, and I'm like, okay, like, what am I supposed to do? Are they supposed to run that fast? I found that really strange, but apparently it's a feature. It's a feature. Yeah.
But yeah, this post definitely made the rounds. But I do want to say that, I mean, it was really funny to read, but I don't want, if people should be submitting bug reports. It's not, people shouldn't feel ashamed if they earnestly thought something was a certain way and then it wasn't. Like, I mean, most of these I knew, but the last one on level up, the message your skill and protection increases to 15. That was added in 1.12.1, and we're intending to keep that. When I saw that, I was like, I don't remember this, but I guess that's how it was back then. But like that one gave me some pause. So it's like, not everyone knows everything. If you are looking at this list and you think that, oh my God, I don't know, I wasn't aware of some of these. Am I like a noob? Like, will people think I'm stupid?
Mm-mm.
Like, it's still meant to be fun,
Mm-hmm.
just, play how you want. I'm sure just even playing, they can understand lots of things, with user behavior and,
Mm-hmm.
just seeing glitches. Like, if you encounter like a mob and if you can't load into an instance, or if a mob blows up, I'm sure they have, tracking on the beta to test things if players keep failing at, one thing, or something isn't acting how it should. So don't feel bad if you thought one of these was intended, or if
Mm-hmm.
you think that, like, oh, I guess I'm not really good for classic because, like, I'm not smart enough for
Oh
classics.
no, not at all. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. Like it's. I think it's funny when you don't realize something. Like
Yeah.
I didn't realize the feared thing being intended like that, and I'm just standing there like casting, and it's like doesn't work. I can't do that. Or what else was weird for me? Oh yeah, the completed quests are marked on the minimap with a dot. That was confusing to me, because I noticed when you're in a party with somebody, that also kind of looks like a dot, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
it took me a while to realize like that means my quest is complete. Um,
Yeah, and dots are like herbalism nodes now
yeah,
and other
yeah,
things.
that's a good point too. That's a good
Yeah.
point too.
There
Always
was
very
a
interesting to
follow-up.
read these. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of these, the reaction to this post was just like, oh, players think things should be easy, but it's actually meant to be difficult.
I
But
don't
then there
think
was a
that's the
follow-up
point.
post.
Mm-hmm.
There's a follow-up post where, it shows that it goes both ways. Like, people thought that some aspects of classic were um more difficult than they actually were. People thought that elites should be hitting for I think significantly higher, but that wasn't the case. And Blizzard went out of their way to compare their testing realm to the WoW Classic beta, to show that things were hitting how it should, and they weren't, dumbing down Classic in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was actually cool because, on BFA, the devs communicate now and then, but it was actually cool to have them be like, here's a picture, on our 1.12 reference environment, and you can see we've spawned this NPC, and here's the combat log. And I just think it's nice how they're going like really into detail, explaining their reasoning, so
Mm-hmm.
people, believe them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Um, One sec. Someone actually made a blue post on the essences we were just talking about, so I'm finding someone able to cover it while I'm
Oh,
out. Yeah.
gotcha, gotcha. But yeah, I
But
think it
yeah.
was fun to read these, and I, uh, I think I'm not sure if that's exactly what also happened in the comments, but if people think that somebody thinks the quests not being shown on the map is not intended, doesn't necessarily mean that the person wants the game to like be more casual or anything like that. It's just they simply don't remember or didn't know, and that's okay. That is
So
fine.
actually,
Mm-hmm.
two of the people, I'm just gonna, I know Bright Screen, I'm just gonna post, it's like a two sec. I'm gonna post this quickly just because two of my news writers are actually boarding a plane right now.
Ooh, okay.
Um, so I'm just,
Well, so
yeah.
are you posting an article or are you posting a link?
I'm just writing a blue post really quickly.
All right, yeah, go for it. No worries.
Being like, Druids, don't freak out. Let's see, Boomkin and Feral.
I want Blizzard to
Huh.
put the new player models in Classic as a toggleable option. That would be great. Honestly, I feel like if they give it as an option, it doesn't really affect anyone else. So I don't see it as a problem if they would do that. I would probably not use it myself, but I wouldn't necessarily find a problem with it.
Also, this isn't exactly um related, but with the graphics options are different in WoW Classic than in Vanilla. They let you have higher resolution and more ground clutter than you could get by normal means in Classic. So,
Mm-hmm.
who knows? Like, if you want to play with the super low res version, you can. But if you want things to look
A little
a bit
prettier.
better, yeah,
Yeah.
you have that option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I accidentally at some point put all my settings on max, and then my viewers were like, "No, Annie, this is not the classic experience. Change it back." It was funny. But yeah, we have some live updating going on. That's why Perk is a little bit off, but that's okay. I mean, it is a live show, so this is you guys witnessing an article going up live.
Let's see.
But yeah, about the stress test, what else did we have? Yeah, we had the features that are not bugs, the elites when people thought they were hitting for less than they used to. And oh yeah, I think there's been quite a few discussions on how Classic is actually different from private servers in general. Because I've been listening a lot to a lot of the people who had experience on those. I actually never played on a private server because I didn't feel like it's okay. I don't know. It just felt wrong to do so. Therefore, I just never did. But I heard from a lot of people saying how the experience was very different. And I'm sure if you guys have watched some of the streamers, like S-Fan, Stay Safe, Tips Out, for example, they have been talking about it a lot, how there's a lot of things that are actually different, which were unexpected, to the point where some of the leveling routes didn't even make sense or didn't make as much sense anymore because of the differences. And I thought that was really interesting, that the way that people remember Classic is different, not just because it was such a long time ago, but also because people's experiences on these private servers have been a little bit different to what it used to be.
Yep. Okay, I'm back. I just
Welcome back, Perk.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No worries.
But yeah, you were talking about leveling routes, and that's actually something that came up because Wowhead released a series of leveling guides for classes in Classic, and it focused more on things like, best talents and gear. But we got a lot of comments from people asking, they're like, oh, are you covering routes? Because, we've been hearing that they've changed from private servers, so like, are your guides, like, are your routes accurate? And we're like, oh, we actually don't have any routes, but that's an interesting point how...
Yeah.
Like it's just funny how like people try to recreate stuff, with like good intentions and they care about fidelity, but it's like a game of telephone where something just inevitably gets lost as there's more interpretations of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, if you want to see us do route guides, let us know. It wasn't on our first round of guides to get out, but if people want them, we can consider doing that after people, are more familiar with beta routes instead of, private server routes.
Mm-hmm. No, I think there is a lot of interest in that because I pulled up a route myself because I kept getting stuck in places where there was no follow-up quest, and then I'm supposed to go somewhere else at certain times to pick up certain quests, and so even I ended up using a guide at some point. So I think a lot of people would be very interested in those.
Cool. Well, we will consider that. We have around 200 writer applications to go through because I posted that the day before they announced beta. So I think when everyone saw the announcement and then the call for writers, they just like applied being very excited. But we appreciate all the interest.
Of course.
So one topic, we did some more interview recaps on WoW Classic, and one that we liked was with the Russian content creator X Delate, who previously he always has like very interesting insights. He was the one that got the quote about maybe the old gods, coming back a few months ago. And in this interview, we learned who was responsible for the tech for Classic WoW. And that was a engineer called Omar Gonzalez. And he took the modern client and the modern server and taught it to interpret the old 1.12 classic data. And he was able to do it. Yeah.
It is the same Omar. Okay,
yes,
cool.
It's the beta
I wasn't
Omar.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So when we posted that, the subreddit sort of exploded in like Omar is Jesus memes, which was pretty funny to see. Yep. So yeah,
or our chat even now. All hail Omar.
Yes. But Omar killed us in Duskwood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He left y'all to die. How dare
Yep.
he?
So that happened in roughly 2017, and because that was invented, they announced they were able to do Classic in 2017, but then they had to do a lot of bug fixes to make it smooth, and then they could finally show it off in 2018.
Hmm.
And I assume because of the tech where they can render old games in the modern client, that's why they're saying that, Burning Crusade or Wrath would be something, potentially more viable now that would still take time to clean up, but something that could be explored versus they had no idea how to explore it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So yeah,
which
that was a cool thing we learned from the interview.
mm-hmm. And that kind of also goes into the whole topic of because they worked on Classic, a lot of other sort of paths became more possible, or a lot of new fixes might now be possible. So if we go back to the ability that Perk mentioned briefly a little bit earlier today, Eyes of the Beast, when was Eyes of the Beast removed?
Let me check. Let me see.
An ability, a hunter ability. I actually had no idea of this ability, so either it's very old or I'm just very not knowledgeable about hunters. Apparently, it's an ability that allows the hunter to look through or control the pet and also look through its eyes. And this ability is or was broken, but now with the tech that they had to go through to fix some things in Classic, it might actually be possible to bring this ability back. And I thought
Yeah.
that was
Oh, it
interesting.
was removed during the Cataclysm pass.
Okay.
And I
So it's
think
been a
people,
while then.
yeah, and they said that they basically removed all the code for it,
Yeah.
and they didn't know how to bring it back in.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's coming back, and it's actually funny. Our Beast Mastery Hunter writer Bendak, his personal blog is
Mm-hmm.
called Eyes of the Beast. So it was an
Mm-hmm.
ability that meant a lot to hunters.
Mm-hmm. Now I can imagine that feeling like a very special ability. It sounds really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Let's
so
see.
that's like another example of doing the hard lifting, fixing the code, and then other unexpected things also get fixed, which is cool.
Yeah. Seeing if there's anything interesting from this interview. Oh, this was cool. So they clarified that, there's not going to be an in-game shop. Um but they did say that for things like mounts and pets or never, but they did say that at some point you could do things like server transfers and race changes at the end of Classic. So they were saying they could see a world maybe in a year where they could add those sorts of purchasable character
So the
features.
services will not be available at first, so people make,
Right.
proper decisions on what servers they want to be on,
Yeah.
etc. And then later on, when there's less, I don't know, I guess pressure on things, and people might want to play somewhere else, then they open up the possibility for those services. I think that's a good idea.
I could also see it revitalizing things
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, um, if you play with people at launch and then, your life changes or your guild falls apart,
Yeah.
um, it's just nice to have the option, and maybe in a year that would be around, I don't know, when phase 5 or 6 happens, or more challenging content, and
Mm-hmm.
by having the server transfers open, that could maybe entice some people to come back and play with their friends
Mm-hmm.
and put together a group for next Ramus if they want to be more like hardcore with that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think Blizzard wants to wait and see before adding that.
Yeah.
I mean, they did say this was actually available at some point in Classic, so it's not like, oh, we want free money, let's stick
Yeah,
this
yeah,
in.
yeah. Gotcha.
But obviously, it's a delicate topic, no
It
matter what.
is.
There's
And I'm
yeah,
glad they won't allow it. I'm glad they're not allowing it to be in from day one.
yeah.
So people can at least have a feeling of, server, what's the word? A server identity. I think that's
I think
nice.
that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the really fun but controversial topic is the WoW stress test. Speaking of server identity, and and
Yeah.
Omar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
speaking of Omar. Yeah, the stress
yesterday,
tests last night, or maybe it's yesterday afternoon for you.
Yeah, 4 p.m. Yeah,
4 p.m. Okay. It was 1 a.m. for us in Europe, or at least Central Europe. The stress test servers went live. During this time, the regular beta servers were down, and a much larger number of people were able to access it compared to regular beta servers to stress test them, to see what happens when everyone tries to log in at the same time. And I think from my own experience, the stress test was successful. There were some issues with some login issues at first. There were some queues, disconnected a few times, or quite a few times. Eventually managed to get in and creating a character, disconnecting again.
Yeah.
And just a bit of like back and forth like that. And we saw a lot of these experiences similarly across Twitch and probably other websites too. I normally spend my time on Twitch, and you could see that a lot of people were going through this. A lot of people were disconnecting. A lot of people were getting stuck in the character creation screen. A lot of people were getting in eventually as well, as we could see in the videos and the screenshots. There were at some point probably thousands of people there in the human starter area. And
Yeah.
when they were trying out layering and everything and phasing, it was a crazy night or a crazy afternoon. It was a very eventful. A lot of things happened.
Yeah, so personally for me and most of the Wowhead people, we were just
Mm-hmm.
stuck on the character creation screen most of the time, or just waiting in the queue only to say no realms available. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the members, Angelin, was able to get in, so we decided to have him stream, and you could at least watch it if you didn't get in.
Mm-hmm.
And
I remember I
he
disconnected and I
yes.
checked the Wowhead stream, and Wowhead stream is not disconnected. Why am I disconnected? It was funny. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you know, we tried to test a lot of things in the game. It was fun, but I think the fun was caused by all the unexpected challenges that occurred and trying to react to them.
Mm-hmm.
So we put together a Hogger raid, and then everyone DC'd. Uh, so then everyone died. Level
Mm-hmm.
one Hogger raid.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and one funny thing we noticed is that Omar, who we just talked about, spawned as a level 5 gigantic paladin.
Mm-hmm.
And he had little minions following him around called sharding, layering, and phasing as his companions, because those were the tech things he worked on, and that's the tech they were testing.
Oh, that's why.
Yep.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Here, I've
And
got some pictures
because
to show from that as well.
yeah,
Yeah, you can keep on going. Mm-hmm.
because everyone, likes Omar. Everyone was really hyped to see him on the layer. So
Mm-hmm.
the Hogger raid, they saw him wandering around. So Anshlin's entire Hogger raid just followed him.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know where he was going. And the NPC led them all across the river, very bad, into Duskwood. And then they started to have their numbers thinned out because, all the spiders. But they kept following him. And kind of in the center of the zone, Omar just waved goodbye to them and vanished. And he
Mm-hmm.
just left them all in Duskwood as
Just
level
left
ones.
them all to die. Poor,
Yep.
poor baby gnomes. Or humans,
But
actually.
it was a really good way of testing large groups of people traveling between zones.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to log in at this point, so I was just like watching this, and like all the characters are like, oh, praise Omar, like we're the children of Omar. Omar, we love you. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, Omar abandoned us.
Yeah. I did not personally see Omar. So I assume I was in a different layer, so I could not see Omar, but I was lucky enough to see some other exciting things.
Yeah.
A bunch of bosses spawning.
Yeah.
So we got some
So,
slideshows for that as well
yep.
here.
So, which bosses did you personally see? Because I think the pictures are what Angelin saw, and he was on a
Yes.
really good layer.
Yeah. He was lucky seeing all of these. So we currently see Enraged Cthulhu.
That
I
was so
did
cool.
not see this one, but it looks really cool, especially with all the tentacles around as well.
Like, hey, we were just talking about Nazoth and Red. Maybe this is like Nazoth
Yeah,
model. Red
exactly.
Cthulhu.
The ones that I personally saw were Onyxia, Ragnaros. I only saw Ragnaros for about 10 seconds. So this was when the timer had started, server shut down in 1 minute, and at around 15, 20 seconds or so, that's when Ragnaros appeared on my screen. So that's when we saw him. But we did have quite a lot of time with Onyxia, Patchwork, um, Bolvar. Bolvar was also there.
Oh, that was cool.
Not gigantic, like a smaller version. I mean, still bigger than us, kind of. Actually, yeah, I think a little bit bigger than us, but not as huge as these other bosses, of course. Which else did I see?
I know people got Thrall
Golmog.
and
Yes, we saw
Ragnar. Oh,
Golmog.
that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. And Hogger too. We saw many Hoggers.
Yeah, they announced at the very end, they were like, oh, there'll be a mass Hogger invasion,
Uh-huh.
and then a bunch of Hoggers spawned, but then they added way more bosses besides Hogger.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That was so I guess I wasn't in too bad of a layer, so I was able to see quite a few of them. Bolvar was there. Yes, he was in my layer. He was I believe he was fighting Golmog. If
Yeah,
I
it's funny
or
when they put the bosses against each other because they spawned Patchwork on my layer to kill Onyxia.
yes, Onyxia was fighting Patchwork. Maybe yeah, I don't remember. Onyxia was fighting Patchwork.
Yeah,
And
and Patchwork's name was Bob's Minion.
yes, it was. It was really cool. The whole experience, because I've never experienced this. I heard later on that it's quite common at the end of beta periods
Yeah.
to spawn bosses and stuff for fun, but I've never been a part of those before, like ever. So for me, it was a completely new experience, and also experiencing the troll of system messages. That was
Yeah,
also really cool.
they're really funny. Like,
Hmm.
oh, like we're gonna test this now. Just log in right after, or the server might also catch on fire.
Yeah, and something that didn't happen yesterday during the server, I mean during the stress test, but which happened on the regular beta servers, was a message that said, "All right, guys, like test period over. All your characters are gonna get
Oh
wiped."
yeah, that was great.
And then 10, 15 seconds later, just joking, by the way, or something like that. I don't remember the exact wording. And that was so funny because people panicked. People were like, what? We're losing our level 30 characters? I just dinged 30. I've been farming gear trying to get best in slot for level 30. Are you really just deleting them? It was hilarious. It really reminded me of the whole like wholesome feeling of Blizzard being funny. And GMs being funny in general from back in the day. It was really nice to sort of see all that in action. I loved it.
Yeah. But we were talking about some of the funny things that happened, but do keep in mind that, you know, I'm saying all this was fun, but I wasn't able to log in. I just thought it was fun knowing
To see
that
it, yeah.
Blizzard was doing cool things, and this
Mm-hmm.
happens with a lot of tests. And I know some people were frustrated that they couldn't log in, or that it seemed that, all the streamers got in and nobody else. But the stress test is not meant to be fun. Like it's meant people are not meant to be able to log in. They want to test crashing the server and a bunch of other things. And even if you add up all the streamers on Twitch, like that would be maybe one layer of people. There was, hundreds, thousands of people in these starting zones, and if someone isn't streaming on Twitch or has a social presence, you don't know that they're there. Like you only hear from the influencers because like they're very good at letting people know when they do stuff. But
Yeah.
like there was no Wowhead comments. People were like, "Hey, I got in. I'm not a streamer," and it's like, "Hey, I run Wowhead. I didn't get in. Like, shouldn't I have my bias?"
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I think people. I agree that if people didn't know what a stress test was, maybe that could have been communicated more clearly. Because I think more people care about this stress test and getting to play than some
Mm-hmm.
other
Mm-hmm.
stress tests in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's only meant to be. It's just meant to test the server under
A lot of stress.
duress. Yeah,
Yeah.
there are two more coming up in the future, so maybe they will go smoother since people know,
What to
you
expect.
know. And there's also, yeah, like maybe Blizzard is working on making things better. They actually
Mm-hmm.
had a funny recruitment tweet in the middle, like showing the server on fire, and they're like, "Oh, unrelated, like we're looking to hire more engineers for server stability." So that got a good chuckle from some people.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I wanted to say though about the people that got in versus not, one thing I thought was kind of valid is that it seemed that there more people were able to get in that had the permanent beta,
Yeah.
while the stress test invites were more, those people had
More unstable.
difficult time getting through.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was a little weird because you don't want someone to feel like they're, like a second class person, or
Mm-hmm.
that they were like, oh, you'll get to play and have access for a day. And I think people viewed it as like, oh my God, I get to play beta for a day, not, oh, I'm going to just be loading screen fodder. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe expectations could be managed better with
Mm-hmm.
that. But, we made this post because we wanted to share all the cool things that happened
Mm-hmm.
with you guys and the other members of the Wowhead team, because only one of us got through,
And you have a
really.
beta key too, right? And you had problems
Yeah,
as well. So it's not like if you had
yeah,
beta, you were guaranteed either. Um,
yeah,
like I said, like there were a few times when I disconnected and I checked other streamers and they weren't disconnected. And
right,
sometimes I would see other people disconnect and I'm still in. So I think it was definitely very unstable. There might have been a little bit of, I don't know if bias is the word, but there might have been a thing where people who did have beta had a higher chance of being able to get in, whereas other people were more likely to
right.
disconnect. Um, but yeah, it's I think at the end of the day, I think it's good that most people who have beta access, who mostly tended or who mostly might have been streamers, were able to do something at least so that
Mhm.
people could watch and also somewhat be a part of it, which is always nice. I mean, I if I wasn't streaming myself, I mean, I was streaming myself and I still had like two streams open in the background because my whole
Right.
chat and I was excited about everything. And, it's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, wait, look, he's got Cthulhu on his screen now, because I couldn't see
Right.
Cthulhu. So it was exciting for me to also see other streamers' experience of it, even though I was streaming myself at the same time. So I think hopefully you guys agree with the fact that the streamers being able to get them was probably a good thing. But I don't think it was specifically targeting streamers to be able to do it. I think it might have been a bias towards beta users in general. But like you hear now, Perk has beta and she had problems being able to log in as well. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think the only thing with streamers is that maybe some people that played during vanilla, like that was before influencers and Twitch was a thing. So maybe there's a sense of like, oh, like Twitch, like what's Twitch, and like why are people from Twitch invited if they're, big players from other games? Like, this wasn't how
oh
marketing
yeah,
and the community worked in vanilla, but I mean that's separate from the stress test. That's a general complaint about like how are invites
yeah,
handled.
because there's a lot of streamers who, yeah, correct. Like they may not play WoW anymore, but they have a beta invite because they
Right.
have a big influence and they might have played
Yeah.
10 years ago. Um, but yeah, I think the beta invites is true. That one has pretty much, I think, been confirmed that it was, mainly targeting PR and content creators. But the stress test was not meant to do that. However, it might have been a little bit easier for people with beta to be able to connect, which might
I
not
also feel
might not have
like
been
if you
intentional
could,
either. Like it might just be a
yeah.
technical thing. Like because they have access to more of the servers, it's just it loads better or something. I don't know.
I also feel like because streaming is so accessible that if someone got in, they're like, oh wow, I got in and not many people did. I'm going to fire up my stream and maybe get some more viewers than normal, which is, kind of the case with us. I mean, like Wowhead is not really a streaming first, we're a site, but we decided to keep streaming the whole thing when we saw that we were relatively smooth and some other people
Mhm.
had issues,
Mhm.
because we're like, hey, we don't usually have this many people watching us,
Mhm.
and why not keep going with it?
Yeah.
So,
I think Wowhead was the
unfortunately,
first person that I saw get in.
yeah, we saw that too. That was pretty funny. I was like, oh, why are there so many people suddenly watching? Oh,
Yep.
no one else is.
Yep.
So
Wowhead
that
was
was, that was
in,
good. Yeah.
and I was checking some other ones like Asmongold, Soda Pop, and they were not in. And then I think maybe like 2-3 minutes later, I managed to get in, and the big streamers were still not in. And then I think I DC'd. Somehow Wowhead did not DC. Unfair, by the way, biased towards Wowhead. I got DC'd, and when I DC'd, then people like Asmongold and Soda Poppin managed to get in. So I don't know. It was a lot of back and forth going like that. It was funny.
Yeah, and I think we got world first Hogger because of how.
Ooh. Uh huh.
Yeah, I think we killed Hogger, and
Uh
then
huh.
38 out of the 40 people in the raid DC'd.
DC. Yes, yes. I saw a
Yeah,
screenshot of that. It was like 2 people online. Everyone
yeah.
else was
I
offline.
think I think the kill like DC'd everyone because that's when I DC'd too. I like made my character. I finally made my character, and I was like, oh, I'll do this crazy night elf run, and I ran like 3 steps, and I got DC'd, and then I
Oh, so
couldn't get
you
back
were.
on for
So
a
you
really time.
were. So you were in the game, but then you just couldn't get back in.
Yeah, I mean, it took me like 20 minutes to log in, and then
Mm-hmm.
I made the character, and then I ran, and then I couldn't get back in again, and then it couldn't retrieve my character. So then I waited like 2 more hours, and I got in at the end of the stress test, and I saw a few hoggers, but my layer didn't have any bosses spawning, I think.
Mm.
So I was like, this is I'll just like go back to watching Anshlin instead because his
Because
layer
his
was
is
really fun.
working. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair enough.
So but yeah, I mean, like, I just had fun watching people. I didn't feel like I was, like treated poorly or anything. I
Mm-hmm.
know a lot of people were like, oh, like, you must have gotten in, like, your post sounds happy. And it's like, I just thought it was really fun how Blizzard, tried to do this and
Mm-hmm.
added some fun aspect to
Mm-hmm.
something that could be an otherwise, like, very boring technical event. So,
Yeah. I also heard that Omar picked up Asmongold and like threw
oh,
him in the
yeah.
air and killed him. I
I
think
know
that's
about
great.
Omar.
Like that's
It's
amazing.
like evil Omar, yeah.
I think that's amazing for entertainment and like a feeling of like there's people behind this game. They're doing things on
Yeah.
purpose to make us laugh, which worked.
And it was cool for me to watch it because I think they've always done this in tests, but I wasn't around for like the ancient tests. Like, so I was like, oh, cool! I actually get to experience this, even though I missed the first round of it 15 years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
it was cool seeing that. I mean, usually they spawn bosses related to the expansion, so I never really saw an event that had all these vanilla bosses spawning. I've seen in Warlords they had Mop and Wad spawning. The Nomi testing in Legion had a ton of Fel Reavers, but I didn't, it was cool. I saw something I hadn't seen before, so I'm happy Blizzard,
Mm-hmm.
put on a crazy show and I got
Mm-hmm.
some good pictures of it.
Yeah. Yeah, overall it was a great experience. I had a lot
Yeah.
of fun. And it's funny because I wasn't even planning to get on the stress test. Actually, the only
Oh,
reason I decided to do it in the end was because of all the people who messaged me and told me in the chat, like, hey, Annie, I'm in the stress test. Are you going to do it? If it wasn't for
yeah.
that, if it wasn't for my community letting me know that they got in, and when I play beta, it's pretty much nobody in my community who has access, I felt like, okay, you know what? Maybe it'll be a fun like community thing. I didn't realize it would be so huge among so many communities, and that Blizzard would also get involved with these very trolly GMs. It was a great experience.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm just thinking about the Omar like conga line thing, and I'm just like, was there a cat? Like, was that the actual GM doing stuff? Because I wonder if he was just like moving for fun, and then he's like, 40 people are following me. I'm gonna have
Oh
fun
yeah.
with this, and he just kept. And it's like,
uh,
oh God, why are they still
yeah.
following me?
Oh yeah, and also the night started from my perspective with two raids forming, Alliance versus Horde. So we had the Alliance with Asmongold there at the front, and we had the Horde with Soda Poppin at the front. And there was a race to get to Anchorage first, and the
Yeah.
winner gets $500 from the other one. Um, so we had a bunch of gnomes running to Manatee Harbor and taking the boat across the sea and swimming down to Teneris and then running across to Ongaro and dying a million times on the way to then realize, okay, I guess I'm not going to make it. Race is over because somebody already made it there somehow. There were some crazy routes that people took. It was a really fun experience though. So for me, my
Yeah.
experience started there with the gnomes versus undead to AQ, and then after that we had the human starting area with the hoggers and the boss spawns and all that we talked about earlier. It was really fun. It
Yep.
was a great night.
So, future stress test will be June 19th, and the third one is July 28th.
Okay.
I think they'll go more smoothly because,
Yeah.
they obviously got bug reports from this one, but I wouldn't. It's not like the stress test is meant to be some like free for all, like go power level, have amazing beta access for a day. It's meant to test the
Yeah.
servers breaking. So
Yeah.
when the game releases, it's not going to be like a Warlords of Draenor
Mm-hmm.
fiasco.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because at first, I think
so
everyone's
yeah,
at the same spot, and they're like, okay, by the
yeah,
way, now we're going to switch on layering. We don't know what's going to
yeah,
happen. Might explode. And
right,
then they switched it on, and then we started seeing people
yeah,
phasing.
yep. So, let's see what else was there. We've got some interesting classic Wowhead updates. That would be cool to share.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first thing is that we know that Classic Wowhead is a very new site, but we know there are sites out there that try to show things like drop rates and maps and loot tables based on private servers. So when you go to Classic Wowhead and you're like, why is this empty? You might want to use Wowhead, but then like you feel bad that it has less info. So we've been working really hard, and the Wowhead client is now working. So you can submit your user data to Classic Wowhead, and it will populate our Classic database 100% with Classic only beta info. So we will get things like NPC locations and maps, drop rates and item sources,
That's
including dungeon
awesome.
loot,
Mm-hmm.
things that vendors sell and their costs,
Mm-hmm.
things like the completion text with quests, more translations, new quests, the order in which you complete quests, and maps for quest objectives. So there's a lot of stuff. We made a post. We have several hundred people that in the beta that are using it and sending us data. So we appreciate that. The more the merrier, because a lot of this information, like you need to personally do the quest, and that's how. If enough people do it, then it shows up on Wowhead. So if you're like a night elf priest, we're not getting the information on the undead priest quests.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're only getting the quest that you've done, and if you've done up to level 10, we're not getting level 30 dungeons if you've only run something like Wailing Caverns.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's really important, and we're trying to have people run this as much as possible, but just understand it's a catch-up thing, and obviously
The more time,
private
the more
server
accurate.
Wowhead would not go very well.
Yeah.
So we're trying to just do this based on Classic from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
And with all the things we've been talking about, with people not remembering vanilla exactly,
Mm-hmm.
some of the drop rates and things that the community thought were real may actually be slightly different on Classic. So as we get more data, this should be really accurate just for Classic. And we are starting to get some in. Of course, we just need more. But if you go to the first Night Elf quest with the young Nightsabers, the young Nightsaber page has a map now and a drop table of 7 items. So it's
Mm-hmm.
coming along.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we obviously need more, especially as you get into the higher levels. And we
Mm-hmm.
need more people helping out with that.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's one of those things. The more
and
data, the
yeah,
more accurate. So
yeah,
you're sharing your information, your experience, which helps and makes the information that other people will search up more accurate, which is always nice.
yeah. Also, just as a reminder, if you're looking up an item in Classic, if you use the live version of Wowhead, you're not going to see the Classic stats and Thoughtbot comments. You need to go to classicwowhead.com and see it that way. We've
Mm-hmm.
added a really obnoxious button that says "Click here for our Classic database items and tools," because like people were just missing the option we already had.
I also
And
actually missed it.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
how, because it's actually clear once you know. It's like, yeah, of course. But I
yeah.
just somehow didn't see it.
Yeah, so like yeah, just like we know that we need data to add in more loot tables and whatnot, but if people are like, oh, like Wowhead's showing all the wrong stats, like
Yeah.
you're showing BFA stats and they didn't exist in Classic, it's like, oh, that's just you're on the wrong version of
Yeah.
the site.
Mm-hmm.
So please swap over to the other version of the site.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as part of this, we've also gotten like thousands more quests in from the 1 through 30 range. Because it's capped at 30, we won't be able to get 30 through 60 quests in with users, but we're trying to do our best to update everything as much as we can. And we appreciate your patience and support of the site. We've been seeing a lot of traffic to the talent calc and guides and some item pages as we teach people to actually use the classic database, like Whirlwind Axe, I think is our top item page. So that's cool. Um, we also now support Wowhead in many languages: French, German, Korean, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, and Chinese. So that means that you can leave comments in those languages. All the menus and items are translated. And if you care about tooltips on your own site, that now works. So you can specify use the classic version of the site and use a special language. So well, that's coming along. We also, like we mentioned before, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we don't have SAS to take in questions, but I have been trying to read the chat throughout the show. So if you have any questions, just type it and I should hopefully see it.
Yeah, if people have any questions on how we're progressing or what we have planned for Classic Wowhead, I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, the final thing we have another quest highlight today, but the final thing I was gonna mention with the classic site was we released our first batch of classic guides. We promoted them, written by the Krug Life, and these go into leveling talents and builds, spells to buy when leveling, and which to skip to save money, ability rotations, best gear, and recommended stats. And people really seem to like them. So we're very happy with their release. And we will maybe look into route guides as well. But if you're curious about, these talents look way different, where do I put all of them? We have good leveling recommendations. And I think today we will be highlighting class quest. So if you want help on how to get your Whirlwind Axe or a Warlock pet, that guide will be up. I think later today we'll highlight a batch of those 9 as well. So yeah, that's about it on the classic end. And I think before we take questions, we had one more party update that I wanted to share. Unless I missed something in the notes, I'm checking quickly. Okay, yeah, we can do I can mention the Wowhead party quickly. So you mentioned last week that we paired up with Con Before the Storm and we were crushing our funding goals. And for this show, I was going to announce that we set a third stretch goal, but that we already passed it. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's
we
really
are
awesome.
Bringing back the prize wheel for backers. So every backer gets a guaranteed spin, and by having it for backers only, it should cut down on the lines. And we will be surveying every person to see when they want to spin the wheel, so we can have scheduled time slots. So the flow should hopefully be better this time. And that support was amazing. That was unlocked after donating over $35,000, which is really awesome, because Calm Before the Storm last year, I think, raised 19,000. Let me see what the Kickstarter is at right now. It's at 36,605. So yeah, that's really awesome. It's like nearly twice as much as last year. And I know a lot of the Kickstarter tiers are just sold out. Like there's no more spots left. So it's a good problem to have. We're working on a fourth stretch goal. But like we're all really happy with how the party is coming along and looking forward to planning the actual community events once the funding wraps up. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you to everyone for being so generous.
Yep. So do we have any questions on like what Classic Wowhead has planned or the data mining? I know we've been trying to answer a lot in the Wowhead streams recently. Angelin's been trying to do one every day, as well as Steven, who's our data miner. So yeah, big shout out to everyone watching the data mining stream, because it's really weird to be like, oh look, we found this model, and then like you hear me yelling for someone to post spells, and it takes a lot of guts to like stream like a very stressful work meeting, but I think a lot of people liked it. So
yeah, I'm sure people did.
Yeah.
It's always very interesting to see those kind of things from the other like perspective.
Yeah, it's like website fails. Like there was some, we posted the essences, but then it didn't show up because we opened the page earlier, so the timestamp was like an hour ago. So we're all freaking out on Twitch,
Oh,
being like, "Where is the essence post? I don't
yeah.
see this." Oh wait, we're so good at understanding our website.
Yeah, I think for throughout most of the show, I've kind of commented whenever I saw anyone in the chat do anything or say anything. I also want to say, JD Saphir, thank you for your extra comments, giving extra links
Oh.
to people whenever we're talking about new
Yeah, he's been
topics.
awesome,
Yeah.
like hanging out on Anshin's stream and like moving the
Ah.
chat along and
Yeah.
linking to everything. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
he's
I
one of our
noticed he's
French
been doing it today.
localizers.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay. Awesome.
Sass has trained him well.
Sass has trained you well, JD. No, but honestly, thank you for that help. Really appreciate it. I see a question from Tilted Elf. What do you think Sylvanas' fate is? Where you think she will end? So we didn't really talk that much about lore today, but is that something that you feel like responding to?
Yeah. So I think that uh she is she's not trying to save us. She has a mission that seems parallel to Nizoth and maybe is aware of the threat, but she's, if anything, they're trying to use each other.
Mm-hmm.
She's mentioned a lot that she's always wants to master death, and the Void keeps having whispers that, kill her, kill the Queen. The Queen is evil. So I don't think they're secretly working together. I think that N'Zoth wants to raise the Black Empire, and everything that's sleeping will awake, everything that's dead won't be dead. While Sylvanas, she has a related plan to death, but slightly different, to in fact master death. In Three Sisters, she talks about, oh, I'll let them live for now. Eventually, they will serve death. They will serve me. In Lordaeron, she tells Bane that death is her realm to master. There are multiple wars, and death is one outcome, but that's going to be hers. She frequently keeps talking about death in the novella A Good War. She talks about having ulterior motives beyond the faction war, and that like some large, almost cosmic forces would be annoyed at her plan if they knew about it, implying that she's trying to disrupt things in a really major way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that she will continue. We know that she's not just gonna like be arrested and sit in the cell like Garrosh. But
Or at least we've been
I
told
think
so.
right. I mean, I think if anything, they might stretch the parallel to where everyone shows up united against her, and then she traps us because we're all working together, similar to how we all got really overconfident at the end of Undercity,
Yeah, we were
and
all in
we're
the
like,
same room.
oh, you will formally resign, and she's like,
Yeah, as if.
sorry, no.
Yeah.
So I think that she could be planning a trick like that to get everyone united against her in the same place and then do something pretty warped. Um, but it wouldn't play into N'Zoth because I feel like she's sort of trying to take the dagger of Xalatath
Mm-hmm.
and sort of use these twisted energies for her own means. And N'Zoth is like, oh, look at all this conflict. This, they're all distracted. This fits perfectly into Ashara's plan because they're too distracted to realize the bigger picture. And I think the two stories will run parallel. I'm not really sure how she will end up. I think that there has to be a twist somewhere, or maybe she could end up as like a third faction, or
Third
maybe
faction.
it's like if N'Zoth wins in some form,
Mm-hmm.
and Sylvanas is opposed to N'Zoth, maybe there'd be a faction where it's like, well, she's the lesser of two evils, and you know do you want to side, maybe she has a better vision or future
Mm-hmm.
over N'Zoth, but yeah, I don't see them working together. I see them maybe using each other, like we were speculating that Ashara and N'Zoth would use each other, which didn't turn out to be the case. Maybe that dynamic is like the tension of N'Zoth trying to raise the Black Empire as she's trying to master death. And
Mm-hmm.
we have these two parallel storylines of like, oh god, N'Zoth is rising, and like, haha, we're gonna beat Sylvanas. Oh no, now she's like subjugated us as part of the plan to master death. And we look clueless in both situations because I feel like BFA is all about us not thinking we're amazing heroes, but actually being very stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like,
like just
thanks.
everything we do, it's like, why are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had an article a week or two ago called like Sylvanas' Endgame and the faction conflict. I don't know if Saphir could find it quickly. I can paste it into
He's
Discord if
actually
I can.
already pasted it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Speculation regarding Sylvanas Endgame, Old Gods, and the faction war. Brackets, spoilers, and there's the link.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
posted
that's
it
the
as
one.
he started talking about it, so that was perfect.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's what I think will happen
Mm-hmm.
to her. They did say in my interview a few weeks ago that her end game was coming up soon, and we are going to learn lots more about her. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping we'll get the treatment to Jaina where we get more cinematics explaining her past and like real cinematics, not like oh
Mm-hmm.
here's a character spotlight, but she's going to burn a tree, so everyone is going to hate her.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be interesting to see more of her early life or see those visions at Edge of Night come to life, because I don't think a lot of people realize that there was a short story between Wrath and Cataclysm where she committed suicide in Ice Crown and got a vision of hell and didn't want to stay in hell and desperately does not want to die.
Mm-hmm.
As well as the detail that she fell upon the black blood of Yogg, and it's like, oh, was he influencing her vision so she would get paranoid and escalate her like low key, I hate the living type thing.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see that whole short story dramatized, similar to Jaina with Pride of Kultiris. It'd be interesting to see a series of Sylvanas cinematics in 8.3. So we would have Jaina Warbringers 8.1, Ashara Warbringers 8.2, and then Sylvanas 8.3.
Yeah, that makes up a nice arc. I feel like
Yep.
that would be very, very fitting.
And then I feel like all of the Sylvanas merchandise and statues Blizzard has made wouldn't feel as awkward. Like, oh, I bought a statue of this person that did a shitty thing. Although they'll still really have to explain that, because it's like, even at the end of the day, if she's like the anti-hero against Nazad, it's like, well, like, you really mess things up.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of cultures had like you sparked this war in a time of peace, and it's almost reminds me of like Game of Thrones. It's like, oh well, maybe some characters had growth, or they stepped up into leadership, or like Jaina reunited with her mom, but it's like you like now all these nations are involved in a war, and rulers are dying, and it's I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, I feel like she definitely escalated things
Oh, yeah,
for the worse. So
for sure.
yeah.
I also noticed that Gumdrops actually hosted a stream. So if you're still
Oh,
here,
thank you.
thank you very
Yeah.
much for the host.
Yeah.
Um, I saw somebody ask if there's been any indication of how many classic servers there'll be. I haven't heard of any specific number of classic servers. I think at some point they're going to release the list of it before it's actually live.
Yeah. I forget, I don't know if they went into the names, but they said something to the effect that the names, when I was at the press event, that the names of the servers would give people a chuckle, and it would be related
Oh,
to aspects of classic.
okay, cool.
So yeah.
I guess we'll see then. But yeah, these
Yep.
servers will be available as a list before it actually launches. Mostly, or maybe not mostly, but also because they will open up the possibility to reserve names before the server is actually up. So instead of risking, not even being able to log in to get the name that you want, because, it could always happen. Things may not be super stable on launch. You can
Yeah.
reserve your name. I think it's 2 weeks before or something like that, maybe 3 weeks.
Yeah, it is the let me get the exact times. I think it's the 13th for most of the world. So it's 3 p.m. on the 12th if you live in LA.
There you go.
But for, Europe, it's going to be, very early morning 13th.
Mm-hmm. So around
Wasn't
12th,
it?
13th.
That was like the BFA was the 13th, right? Yeah. I just suddenly had this like very strong sense of deja vu. Maybe it's both August releases, and I don't know what I'm saying.
I don't
But
remember the dates.
I just looking at that same map with the global release time was just like, oh yeah, BFA released August 14th.
Okay,
So yeah, year
nice.
after BFA, we have classic reserving names.
Mm-hmm. We also have Swiggy with a uh, question. It's a bit okay. It's a bit of text. I'll read all of it. Would you consider teaming
Okay.
up with Joanna? He has the Horde guide from his actual vanilla speedruns. I'm working on a full alliance guide now as well. 1/3 done so far. Would be cool to see a Wowhead Joanna collaboration for leveling routes. It's interesting you mentioned that because Joanna is something who was, or Joanna, is somebody
Yeah.
who was mentioned a lot in my stream as well. Yeah, I don't know if there's any plans or anything like that with Wowhead. I don't know if you want to comment anything.
I mean, like, I think that the guides are really cool. And we put out a call for writers before. I'm, definitely cool with reaching out to Joanna. The one thing is that, like, if someone has their own site and they want to update their own site, they may
Oh
not be
yeah, that's a
interested
good point.
in,
Yeah,
like,
cause yeah.
subsuming their site. I mean, like, we pay our writers, but I just wonder if, someone that's made a brand for so long on having their, website would, like, want to give that up. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe even if they don't want to, maybe Wowhead could do like a interview with them, or
Mm-hmm.
like they could do a little editorial on how they plan things, or
Mm-hmm.
how some things were different from classic than their past guides. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe there could be a potential of highlighting them in some way for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I just don't want to, like, if
Take
someone
over the
wants to have
guide.
their own site.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
it's
course.
like, yeah, or I don't know. I mean, if they wanted to do a modified version on Wowhead, I think that would be cool. It's just, like some people, their projects or their babies, and you don't want to feel like you're,
100%.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. I do feel like Wowhead is always very open to working with people. You guys probably seen tons and tons of guide or any kind of writers on Wowhead already, and I think it is important to consider the fact that some people may have their own brand that they're working on, so they may not necessarily want to share their babies, like Perk put it. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm pretty sure that if there would be possible to do something else together, it would happen. But it's good to know. It's good to hear interest from you guys as well, so that Wowhead knows what you guys might be interested in. So that's always good
Yeah.
feedback.
It's definitely something we're currently doing, like the, BIS list and the
Mm-hmm.
dungeon guides, and we're sort of done with like the phase one of like, did we explain the basic parts of the game? I think we want to go back and look at doing another round of more advanced guides, and then getting some of the writers that applied on board. And I could see, like, how do we want to tackle the topic of root guides? Would people
Mm-hmm.
even want to go to Wowhead if they are all going to Joanna? Maybe we just like have like a like a TLDR version. But
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely something we want to think about and explore, and we can definitely try reaching out to the author and seeing if they'd like to contribute in some way they feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really cool. I also saw another question. What's up with 1 to 30? I've noticed that no streamer so far is above 30 because there is currently a cap on the beta. So once you hit level 30, you no longer gain experience, and that is probably going to be temporary. We don't know if Blizzard will decide to just wipe all characters and then you get to make templates for different levels, or if they will raise the cap so you can continue leveling. We don't know yet, but I'm sure something will change as they decided that they have tested the 1 through 30 phase enough, and maybe go on to a higher level cap or similar. We'll see.
Yeah, I would be happy if it was tested at a higher level, because then we can, get client add-on information on, things in the higher level
Mm-hmm.
range. So
Mm-hmm.
that would definitely be a plus. And I think that I could be wrong, but I think they said that maybe they would do like targeted testing at higher levels. So if they want people to be testing molten core, maybe they would, I don't know, have like,
Templates, maybe.
yeah, templates maybe not available to run around 24/7 with the template, but maybe to test molten core you could be scaled up or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, definitely, it definitely feels like they need to get some solid end game testing in,
Mm-hmm.
because 1 through 30 is still really different from doing organized large instances.
Oh yeah, and I mean even a simple thing like level 40 where you have your first mount is also
Oh
quite game
yeah, that should be
changing.
tested. Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting. I think the only sort of downside with simply raising the cap and not adding a template is that maybe not everyone can actually have time to level to 40, 50, and whatnot. So it feels a little bit unrealistic to expect so many people to level there. So maybe they're using this 30 mark to see, you know, how many people actually reach it. And then from
That's a good
there, they
point.
decide to either raise the cap, or if not really realistic, maybe they decide to instead just do templates, like a level 40
Yeah,
character, here you go, a level 50 character, here you go, or something.
I remember at the media event, they did set everyone as a level 40 character.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So they do have that tech to
Mm-hmm.
create characters at a variety of levels and open flight paths and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could
So
see them doing that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that covered all of the questions that we were able to see, at least. And it also covers all of the different topics that we wanted to cover today. So we are about to wrap up the show in that case.
Yep.
Unless there's
So
any last minute questions, just go for it. They spawn Thrall. I did see that there were some layers, or
yeah,
I heard
Quissy had
some people
Thrall.
got
I saw
Thrall.
that. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't giant Thrall, it was like fairly small Thrall though.
Yeah, it was the same with Bolvar. Bolvar was also small, and the other
Yeah.
bosses were massive. Also, probably to avoid burnout. Yeah, that's also a good point. If they immediately released 60, then, people might have gotten burnt out and given up. I think when you know that people are max 30, it kind of motivates you more to reach it as well. So for
Right.
me, I had, a couple friends who reached 30 maybe after just a day or two. And then I was sitting there on the third and fourth day, and I was still motivated because, I only have another 5 levels to go. Whereas if they had continued and the gap was even bigger, maybe I would have given up. Who knows?
I also feel that, talking about roots, because a lot of people, would focus on the end game and leveling as fast as possible. And maybe you would, skip quests and instead just, AoE grind in an area. If you're level 30, now you're forced to interact more with the world at
Yeah.
that midpoint level, as opposed to just, blowing off a large part of the world. So they can get some more testing in a range that maybe is overlooked by players that, just want to do the end
Mm-hmm.
game stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. I mean, I unlocked my Voidwalker because I felt like I needed a Voidwalker, but then I
Yeah.
skipped the Succubus and I skipped the Fell Hunter because I didn't feel like I needed them immediately. Well, I guess Fell Hunter was unlocked at 30, so I couldn't really have unlocked it earlier. But it's just
Right.
examples of things that I could have done on the side where I probably would have skipped it if I'm trying to just, level
Yeah.
and catch up with other people as fast as
It's
possible.
interesting. Like, I feel that classic, I mean, it's a slower pace, and you're talking about, like, oh, I skipped a thing to get to the end goal. And I wonder if people will be like, oh, like, what can I do on classic? Oh, there's this quest I didn't do, or, I'm going to try to farm this item or explore. And I don't know, maybe some of that vibe can translate onto BFA, because I feel that so many people are focused on, like, I got to do the thing for my Tuesday chest, and I, have to do the resets.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people keep forgetting that there's like a lot of little things along the way they can do that aren't tied to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
top of the line character progression. Like
Mm-hmm.
I highlight 3 things every Saturday people can do from old expansions, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, I forgot about that."
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like, that's more of a classic philosophy of just, finding a nice long project to do, or finding something out of the way that would be interesting, when there's nothing else you can do, like a raid. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'd like more of that philosophy to just be in the game, just finding something fun and off the beaten path to do, like, do your top stuff, hit your goal, and then think of some fun things to do on the side that you stumble across.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the core reason why people, fell in love with World of Warcraft in the first place. The fact that there were so many different things to do, that there was a whole world, and you could focus on so many things to progress your character other than just leveling, whether it be professions or. I don't know, like farming special cool items in the world, experiencing certain quest lines. It could be anything. It could be anything.
Yeah, I also feel I was gonna say something and I forgot. Oh yeah, it's super nice being in Teldrassil in the night elf areas and just having it look nice, and you're in a zone that is just evocative, and you feel that it feels very immersive. I know that things look more high resolution in BFA, but it's nice. It's nice knowing you're in a zone that feels organic and it's not like, oh, well, this is actually engineered to, like have a quest hub here and to have, treasures placed all around in cunning locations. Like it just feels like I can explore and it's a nice chill zone and there's no horrible thing at the center of it. Like
Yeah.
Ragnaros with Ashenvale on fire or the burning of Teldrassil. It's just like, it's a nice forest. It's fun walking around the forest as opposed to like, oh, like I am reminded of this dramatic story because it's it just feels relaxing hanging out in a nice looking, normal looking zone where you don't feel like Blizzard's narrative is like hanging over your face. Like I mean it's weird, like you're always hanging out in this nice area and then they set it on fire in Cataclysm and then there's a tornado and then they burn the tree in BFA and it's just like, man, like I just like it was so pretty and now it's just so stressful. Yeah. So yeah. That's more of a psychological thing. I'm sure the people that are like grinding or want to hit level 60 don't care about stuff like that, but I mean I think a lot of people, because Classic was slow paced, a lot of people would get really familiar with those low level zones they were hanging out in. Or, if you have to AFK somewhere or you're waiting for a party to start, you just get familiar with the surroundings and it feels comfortable like a second home.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Classic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covered everything, unless there's anything last minute that you thought of that you would like to mention, Perk?
Not really. I made that post on the PvP talents for Conflict and Strife Essence, and they just opened up Essence feedback thread, so I guess that is where you should leave your feedback. And yeah, just thanks for all the support with the Classic site. We're seeing traffic continually increase to it. I think yesterday was our top day, which was really cool because we got more people on weekends, and Saturday had that really viral not a bug post, but we're seeing more people organically using the actual database, so it feels good that we're working hard and people
and
are
is that
liking
people
the
got
updates.
Into stress tests server?
Yeah, I think so. And also we announced the leveling guides and had more obvious database links on our talent calc to the class abilities. So they started getting a lot of traffic as well. So, it's coming along. Hopefully next week we'll have like even more stuff to share. But yeah, we've been really happy with how 8.2 and Classic has been developing simultaneously.
It's awesome. All of the work that you guys are putting in as well.
Oh, thanks.
Making it possible.
There's a
for
lot of
to use
people
it.
behind the scenes working really hard.
Big team. Big team. Shout out to the team. But yeah, thank you to everyone for supporting. Thank you to all of you writers out there working very hard. Not just writers, but everyone on the team. And there's people who may not be writing, but they're still doing their part of everything. We will be back next week, same time, and hopefully have some more PTR updates and maybe even some other type of announcements. We'll see. Wowhead Weekly, covering all the weekly news, right? Thank you so much for all support here on Twitch and on Wowhead's website as well. Feel free to keep using the classic version of Wowhead as well to keep track of quests and items and whatnot of the classic version. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for your support, and use the add-ons so we can get NPCs and quests on Classic Wowhead. And yeah, we will see you next week, 1 p.m.
Okay. Perk is gone. But yeah, that is true. We will see you next week. Wait, am I DC'd? No, I think I'm still streaming.
Oh no, I'm back. Hi. I was like, oh no, the high five. I don't hear Annie. Oh.
Wait, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hey. Okay. Yeah. That was, it just DC'd me. I don't know why. I blame the cat.
It's okay. Yeah, we didn't do the high five.
I was like, Annie's not talking. Did she just like end it?
No, you just froze, and I was like, oh, and then for a second I was like, wait, my camera would work even if my internet breaks, right? And you would
Right.
freeze. So maybe it's me. Maybe we're not even streaming anymore. But I
Yeah.
got some feedback from the chat. So yeah, I'm not
Okay.
really sure what happened there. But
Um.
perfect time for high five.
Yep.
So let's go.
So
Oh, wrong side.
it's this. Okay. Yeah,
No,
wait,
it was
this
wrong side for me. You were right.
Oh. Okay. All right. Okay. On again. 3, 2, 1.
Bam! Yeah! High five! We
Yeah.
made it before the DC. Yeah, wasn't sure if you'd
Yes.
come back or if I should just end the show.
No, I didn't flounce, but thank you so much for being so nice, everyone. Flounce. I think that was
Thank you for the support. Bye, but without the bye part.
Yeah.
But yeah, see y'all next week. Take care, everyone. And bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, actually, I just remembered one last question. Somebody asked how I did
Oh.
my hair. It was in the middle of the show, and then I forgot.
Okay.
This is
How
my...
did you do your hair?
This is my... I am too warm right now. There is too much heat. And I live in Sweden where it's normally cold, so we don't have ACs. I braided both sides and literally just wrapped my headset, or wrapped my hair around my headset. That is all I've done. And then I used one bobby pin on this side and one bobby pin on this side. That's it. That's my very, very stylish hairstyle. But yeah, just a random thing that I remembered. All right.
Yep.
See y'all next week. Bye.
Bye.